Hello all and welcome, and I am the MGTOW philosopher, and in today's video I'd like to talk about the Boy Scouts and why women want their daughters to join. Now, it isn't very complex or even difficult to understand, really, for you see, as with everything that's male, people seem to pay more attention to it, because everyone seems to know, even if it's deep down, that male is better than female. From basketball to soccer to golf, people pay more attention to the things men do. The things men do are simply seen as having more note and greater merit. Heck, you can't even get people to watch women's basketball because it's so boring compared to men's. And don't get me started on the horrible trend of women fighting in the UFC. Seeing women punching each other in the face, that just doesn't do it for me. Same goes for any female sport or undertaking. They do everything less well than men. Now, in the articles written about girls wanting to join the Boy Scouts and why, now, one of the supposed justifications, which is a pathetic paper tiger if I ever saw one, was the argument that the Girl Scouts' top honor, it isn't as well known or prestigious as the Boy Scouts' top honor. And of course, it isn't the Girl Scouts' fault for not making their highest honor more prestigious. Oh no, it's somehow the Boy Scouts' fault for stealing the Girl Scouts' thunder in some way, shape, or form. I don't know how they did that, but somehow they did. It's the Boy Scouts' fault that the Girl Scouts' highest honor isn't as prestigious as the Boy Scouts. And just why is it that the Girl Scouts' highest honor holds less prestige than that of the Boy Scouts' highest honor, which is Eagle Scout? Could it be because it's harder to earn Eagle Scout? Or could it be that no one pays attention to the Girl Scouts because, well, it's the Girl Scouts? Or could it be both? And as with sports and any other female-only task or group, no one cares? Because let's be honest, men always do everything better, and people only care about the best, not the second best, which is by default women when you're talking about the sexes. Hence, even if a Girl Scout were to achieve something, relatively speaking, that was as hard to get for her as Eagle Scout is to get for a boy, it still wouldn't help her very much, if at all, in the real world, while Eagle Scout supposedly does. Or at the least, it's perceived to do so. Now, granted, I personally have seen no instances where it helps men in their adult lives, but maybe it does. Maybe they run into a boss or somebody hiring who also was an Eagle Scout. I don't know. I've seen no evidence as of yet that Eagle Scout helps a man to be more successful in life. Anyhow, it's being used as an excuse by feminists and women to admit girls into the Boy Scouts. Girls should be able to join the Boy Scouts because there should be equal opportunities, and not being able to attain Eagle Scout, well, that's somehow holding girls back. I don't know how, but somehow it is. And if a woman sees some advantage a man is getting that she isn't, well, then that's inequality, plain and simple. Doesn't matter that she has her own scouting group called the Girl Scouts. Oh no, because that isn't giving her the advantages that the Boy Scouts are giving boys. Just like men playing professional basketball are benefiting way more than women playing professional female basketball. And of course, the solution to that isn't to make female basketball better and more appealing, of course. Oh no, the solution is simply to let women into the NBA so they can play with men and benefit as much as men do. Sure, the games will suck to watch and everyone will suffer as the NBA loses tons of money until it goes out of business, but at least the women will be benefiting. Nobody else will be benefiting from a 50-50 co-ed mix, of course, that is about on par quality-wise with a high school kids basketball team. But at least women will be getting some kind of benefit until the NBA goes out of business. The bottom line is that boys benefit more from the Boy Scouts because they are boys. It's just that simple. Just like lifting weights doesn't benefit girls to the same degree that it does boys. I would think that would be obvious. I guess not. Being in the Boy Scouts won't benefit girls in the same way or to the same degree that it does boys. I think that's obvious, simple logic. But I guess such inconvenient truths, well, if you're a feminist, these inconvenient truths, well, they're not worth looking at, I suppose. And of course, the so-called advantages boys get from the Boy Scouts have nothing to do with attaining Eagle Scout being harder or somehow representing a more worthwhile achievement than the Girl Scouts' top honor. Oh no, that perception that being an Eagle Scout is better than the Girl Scouts' top honor, well, that's just a perception born out of patriarchy, not objective reality. Of course, we all know that's nonsense, and that if Girl Scouts want their top honors to have as much prestige as those in the Boy Scouts, that they should simply work harder to make the Girl Scouts better, that they should work to make it more equal to the Boy Scouts in terms of the advantages provided to girls. But oh no, that's not a solution. Nope, because a better, ready-made solution already exists in the form of, you guessed it, the Boy Scouts. Which should, of course, be co-ed simply because girls want it to be. Because it'll be advantageous to girls in the here and now. Who cares what effect making the Boy Scouts co-ed will have on boys? Because if there's some advantage to be had by girls, then girls must get their way and be able to avail themselves of it because of fairness and equality. As for the effect it has on boys, well, that isn't even a consideration, really. Meanwhile, boys aren't allowed into the Girl Scouts. But that's okay because there's no real advantage in the minds of everyone in terms of boys gaining some kind of advantage by joining the Girl Scouts. So it isn't harming boys for them to be denied entry. Yet it's somehow harming girls to deny them entry to the Boy Scouts? Isn't that women saying that the Boy Scouts are better than the Girl Scouts? Oh, no. They're equal but different. Because they offer, they're just equal but different. And we just want them to go into the Boy Scouts because the Boy Scouts offer more advantages than the Girl Scouts. Wait a second. More advantages, less advantages. That sure sounds like them saying that the Boy Scouts are better to me. I don't know about you. And that's what it's really all about in the end. Perceived advantage. And by the way, it isn't enough that women get in the majority of jobs and make more money if they're not married. Oh no, that's not enough. Oh no, they have to control everything. And more importantly, they have to have access to every opportunity out there and access to all the same benefits that a man can get. Even though not having access to something doesn't mean unfairness. It just means difference. Like, for example, not having access to handicapped parking spaces. Would anyone argue that being denied the freedom to use handicapped parking spaces means you're somehow being discriminated against, disenfranchised, or denied something that would benefit you? After all, the shorter walk is a measurable benefit, and you could speculate on possible future benefits, so you should be able to use those parking spaces even if you're not disabled, right? Wrong! Because you're not disabled! Oh, too bad. No, it isn't unfair that you can't use those parking spaces. It just means you're different. Same thing for girls not being able to get into the Boy Scouts, which should be the case. However, women, they just don't care. They just don't care because in the end, it has nothing to do with girls needing to get into the Boy Scouts to gain some kind of advantage. That's just a pretext. The truth is, the real goal is destroying boys and making them less able to compete in the future. It's all about punishing men and flipping the script. Yes, that's right. For all these centuries, men ruled the world and kept us under their boot heels. So now it's our turn. How dare they think they can still have groups of their own, spaces of their own, places that exclude women? How dare those men? Oh, no more. Sure, we're free to have the same spaces and exclude them in the same way. But we suffered for years, so now it's our turn to have it all. The other goal is, of course, to give women unearned prestige. You see, first they lobby to get girls into the Boy Scouts, then they'll change things to make it more suitable for girls, yet at the same time get as much prestige as men and the same benefits as well, even though they're not performing at a man's level. Now, when you talk about unfairness, that's unfair. And by the way, that's exactly what women did with the military. They lobbied to get in, and once they got in, they changed things to make them, quote unquote, more fair for the girls. essentially meaning that standards were lowered. Hence, even though many a crazy feminist would have you believe that men and women are equal, they first had to change the standards before women could even get into the military. They changed the very criteria of what made a soldier in the eyes of many. Start allowing any Tom, Dick, or Jane into, say, the Rangers, a Green Beret, and you'll seriously degrade people's perceptions of the prestige involved in being members of such elite groups, not to mention seriously reducing their overall combat capability. And you mark my words, they'll do the same thing with the Boy Scouts. The BSA. Feminists, through their proxy weapons called their kids, will lobby for new programs and new, more fair standards so that the girls can advance as far as the boys, so that the girls can get that coveted Eagle Scout. That this will lower the prestige that's been built up around the rank over the past 105 years by men is clearly of no consequence to anyone. And how dare I say such a thing anyway? Women are tough and can do anything a man can do. If that were the case, they wouldn't want to be joining the Boy Scouts. And of course, if women are going to create new standards that will allow women to earn Eagle Scout status, why couldn't they have done the same thing with the Girl Scouts instead of spending so much time and energy infiltrating the Boy Scouts? Well, I'll tell you why. Because no one takes the Girl Scouts seriously. And few, if any, have even heard of the highest honor that can be earned as a Girl Scout. I'm sure a few have, but it's a few. It's easier for them to simply force their way into the Boy Scouts and ride boys and men's coattails, get a little borrowed fame and a little unearned prestige in the process. And soon, very soon, the re-engineering can begin in earnest, and you'll have female Eagle Scouts. In fact, I think you'll have them attaining Eagle Scout status in record time. Why? Well, because it's good publicity. Just like it was good publicity to make a few woman rangers. That they couldn't make it through on their own was irrelevant. The government had to prove how progressive and pro-female it was. And women are, of course, as good and as strong as men. Yeah, right. Can't have reality disproving the narrative. So they rigged the game and gave these women endless retries. And even then, only 2 or 3 made it through. And since then, how many have made it through? 0! Without lots of extra help, women cannot compete with men. And you mark my words, there'll be a push by the higher-ups in the Boy Scouts to get a female Eagle Scout as soon as possible. Doesn't matter how you do it. Just do it. We need to prove to the world how progressive we are and that we embrace and promote girl power. You get me some cute little thing in pigtails, preferably some little girl that looks like Hermione from Harry Potter, wearing a BSA uniform with all the required merit badges and that coveted Eagle Scout badge. We need to post a girl to entice more girls to join. As for boys, forget them. We're the BSA now, which doesn't stand for anything, so we can now be money-grubbing. Oh. So some girl who seems to really, really want it will get lots of help, lots of training, and lots of lower standards, unlimited chances, endless tries, whatever she needs until she gets it. Then, boom, the Boy Scouts can use that as a marketing campaign to get more and more girls to join. Virtue signal to the left, and maybe even squeeze a few more dollars out of government coffers, now that they are so diverse and PC. Of course, the overall goal is to simply destroy the Boy Scouts, because that's the only possible outcome. As standards are lowered, the value of everyone's accomplishments will go down in the eyes of others, and in the eyes of boys as well. Especially in the eyes of boys. Heck, it'll plummet the most in the eyes of boys, which is the whole point, really. Boys will simply opt out as they see girls advancing at equal or faster speeds because they have easier standards. And they'll, of course, dare not speak up about that unfairness, because if they do, they'll be labeled sexist or some other nonsense. Boys will come to resent that they have to work twice as hard, 3 times as hard, just to get fewer and fewer kudos. Meanwhile, the girls, well, they're so tough, they're so strong, and they're working twice as hard, twice as long, because it's the Boy Scouts, and she got Eagle Scout, And she's a girl, so she must have worked twice as hard, twice as long to get that. That's the narrative anyhow. Except it ain't true. Not even close. The truth is she'll have to do half as much work to get the same rewards as the boy, who'll have to do twice as much, and he'll get less pats on the back, while she'll get so many more for being this brave, courageous, strong girl who's getting ahead in a male environment. Soon boys won't even join because all the nonsense girls bring to the table. As for the Boy Scouts, yes, initially, at least if you believe what they say, they were pushed into this for fear of losing federal funding, but it was likely a push that they welcomed. They were simply waiting for the right time, the right justification to reluctantly let girls join. After all, they had to be seen as being pushed into doing it. But they didn't drag their feet all that much once they'd made the decision and embraced it. And they acted as if it was all a wonderful thing that had happened to them. At least after the fact. I mean, now the way they're acting, it doesn't seem like they had their feet put to the fire. Whatever they might think about this being a good thing, that being the Boy Scouts, the people that run it, it's not a good thing. It's a bad thing. The Boy Scouts won't last. Now, the left thinks that people will tolerate this social re-engineering of the Boy Scouts the same way they have tolerated everything else. But the left is wrong. We won't tolerate it. You see, the left doesn't understand that people can only be pushed so far and that there are limits to how far you can push them. They don't get that fact because they have yet to see any limits. They will now. The social engineering efforts of the so-called intellectuals, they know no bounds, and these people have no shame. They'll invade any space, break any taboo, just advance their agendas. It doesn't matter who gets hurt because it's all in the service of some quote-unquote greater good, the collective good. And the ends? Well, the ends justify the means in all circumstances, at least when you're dealing with a leftist, and for many a righty as well. For 105 years, the Boy Scouts have been a beacon of hope for men and boys, helping to teach boys discipline and survival skills, leadership and self-confidence, and most importantly, self-respect. Now the Boy Scouts will end because the global elites need to destroy men to make their communist utopia come true. To do that, they must deconstruct any and all sources of opposition, and that includes the Boy Scouts. Anything, and I mean anything that empowers men has to go. Anything that represents or promotes Western values and traditions has to go. And what better way to do that than infest the Boy Scouts with girls who are the proxy weapons of their mommy's destructive ideologies. Ideologies designed to, by their very natures, destroy Western civilization. Soon, very soon, the Boy Scouts will be rife with SJW nonsense, distractions of all sorts, and watered-down programs that in very short order will remove any prestige that might have once been attainable if one became an Eagle Scout. That will happen even if boys' standards aren't lowered, and they still must do the same work they do now to attain a given rank. Very soon, the pathetic excuse of allowing women in because they deserve access to that powerful Eagle Scout rank won't mean a hill of beans to anyone, as women getting it will slowly degrade any prestige it might have once held, because they will not have gotten it legitimately. In the end, everyone is harmed by this nonsense. This isn't going to help girls. They'll have to make so many changes to accommodate them that the very reasons girls had for wanting to join in the first place, to get the same experience as the boys, will be moot. And it won't help boys either, as it'll either destroy the incentive boys might have for wanting to join or ruin the experience for those who already belong. And we have plenty of evidence as to what happens when you allow women into male-only groups. They destroy them or make them totally ineffective. Even if they didn't destroy them slowly over time, which they do, the very fact that Eagle Scout ranks and merit badges are going to be given out to women who got them via illegitimate means will lessen the value of these titles and awards for all parties involved. You also have to keep in mind that the left may also want to destroy the Girl Scouts, as any Yes, any group that they don't control, which fosters high levels of loyalty and have their own ethical codes of conduct, is a threat to them. You see, the left is all about indoctrination. And it makes it harder to indoctrinate your subjects when you have other people whispering things into their ears all throughout the indoctrination process that might be counter to the message you are trying to indoctrinate them into believing. However, if you push to make the Boy Scouts equal part boys, equal parts girls, presenting it as a superior choice with all the supposed prestige attached, then you might just reach a 50-50 mark in gender representation in the Boy Scouts, and in turn, destroy the Girl Scouts. And if boys drop out of the Boy Scouts along the way, so much the better. So much the better. If not, also good, as you now have an extra source of indoctrination in the form of the Boy Scouts. Or at the very least, you'll have neutered the Boy Scouts to the point where they're no longer a threat to your leftist agenda. Also, let us not forget that many of the things taught in the Girl Scouts still push traditional Western values. Oh, no, you can't have that. As we all know, the left needs to destroy those values if it wants to socially re-engineer things into the socialist utopia of the future. So, get those girls out of the Girl Scouts and get them into the Boy Scouts, where you can get them doing things that are anathema to a girl's nature. A place where those dumb, whipped men and boys will gladly allow women to take over and change things to suit feminist wants and feminist needs. Yes, it's easier to infiltrate and change the Boy Scouts and get both boys and girls under one roof than it is to change both the Boy and the Girl Scouts to fit the leftists' agenda. You know, many don't see letting girls into the Boy Scouts as a big deal, but it's really the death knell of America as we know it. That's my view. I see it as the final nail in the coffin, and it's all downhill from here. In fact, right now, I'm calling it. I'm calling it right now. This is the beginning of the end. If the left has gained so much power and influence in America, nay, Western life in general, that they can turn the Boy Scouts into the BSA, 3 letters that represent nothing and have no meaning, then it's over. I am the MGTOW philosopher, and I wish you a good day. Take care.